Welcome to the YoggNation, the Spirit of Gratitude podcast on the One Integration platform. Hello, friends. My name is Yogesh Patel, and this podcast explores the themes of bullying, self-awareness, and the power of our inner spirit, including the silent battles we all face. Join me every week as I invite high-profile guests as we explore how adversity shapes us, how gratitude lifts us, and how we can all uncover the inner strength that we all have within ourselves. Join the conversation. I appreciate you listening in.
Hello, citizens and new subscribers to the podcast. Every 20 episodes, I pause to reflect and share my favorite reels, one from each guest. Then the whole purpose of this podcast has always been simple: to put good messaging out into the world and offer some perspective of overcoming life's challenges. Each clip you'll hear comes from these incredible storytellers, as I can honestly say that I've grown just by being surrounded by their wisdom and spirit and energy. And I invite you to spend the next 20 minutes, whether you're driving, running, or simply unwinding, listening to these reels and finding the messages that speak to you. Because while I may be the brand of the podcast, I'm really just the messenger to these voices. And when you're done, go check out the full episodes and see what resonates most. That's how we will all continue to grow this community authentically, one story at a time. So without further ado, let's get rolling on my first favorite reel from famous YouTuber Jen Hardy. Her podcast on YouTube is in the top 0.5%. And this is what she shares. Let's take a listen.
When I got my first hate thing, whatever, comment or whatever, I reached out to a friend of mine, and I don't even know which one it was. And I'm so thankful, whoever it was, because they said, once you have a hater, that means you're successful. And I've just run with that. You know what? Fine. Because it's somebody pointing out you're doing something that matters. Because if you're not doing something that matters, people don't respond. It was very hard when I started on YouTube. I got some really mean people, and I did almost quit. There was a lot of bullying, but then I made a video about it and I made it fun, and I just made them BB sounds and I flicked them away, and it gave me power over it.
What a great story. I mean, I think what Jen describes as giving these bullies the proverbial middle finger, and just to say that you're simply jealous of my success. But I think more importantly, though, what Jen reminded me after this recording, she made a very interesting point around bullies. She says, don't hate them. They hate themselves. And in the sense that hurt people, perhaps this is one of the reasons why there are haters out there, is that they want to be in your shoes. And again, all you can do is spread your good energy, spread your good vibes to make sure that they understand where you're coming from. And again, it's all these gifts that we have. So I just thought it was really, really fun to hear this. Next, Michael Hurst, a former law enforcement and another successful podcaster, having his show One More Thing Before You Go. I believe now in its nearly 500th consecutive episode. This man is a beast. Donald, eat your heart out, Mr. Beast. This guy is the real deal. And let's see what he has to say and why this particular reel is my favorite. Let's listen in. Always these technical difficulties. All right, let's do it.
I was sitting there in my wheelchair feeling sorry for myself. My wife, my daughters, my sister, my brother-in-law, nobody ever treated me with a disability. Nobody ever treated me any less than I was as an individual, a person, a father, a son, a brother. When my oldest daughter was going to get married, she came up and I said, okay, let's have a talk. We're going to pay for the wedding, of course, but what do you want for your wedding present? Here's where it becomes difficult. She put her hand on each one of the arms on my chair, and she leaned down and she looked me square in the face. And she said, I want you to walk me down the aisle, and I know you can do it. It lit a fire under my butt to say, why am I sitting here like this when I could be doing this? So it was at that time that we, as a family, set out to find out how I could do this. So we found a doctor here, wonderful doctor, Robert Berghoff, and we went there to visit him. He said, what can I do for you? And I said, I want to walk her down the aisle. And he said, yeah, we can do that. The journey was tough. I finished rehabilitation 6 weeks before I was supposed to in order to walk her down the aisle. And it was up there with both of my marriage to my wife, both kids being born. It's right up there with that.
Boy, just listening to this gives me goosebumps and actually shedding a few tears in my eyes. I've got 2 girls, and There's nothing more powerful, more emotional than a moment than a father marrying his daughter down the aisle. And again, this is why the podcast exists, folks, is to put some phenomenal messaging from great storytellers on their courage, their will to succeed, their will and their drive not to give up. And certainly Michael exudes the spirit time and time again. So, the inner spark to set things in motion. And if he can do it with his challenges, having the doctors telling him, no, you can't walk, and for him to be able to walk. And again, sorry, folks, still got a few tears running down my beautiful face. But again, it's that the resilient spirit that defines Michael Hurst. So, Michael, thank you for being on the podcast and sharing your story. Next up, we've got Steve Moulter, corporate brand storyteller. He's the public face of well-known technology companies representing brands such as Cisco, Panasonic, Fujifilm at important trade shows and conferences. And this is interesting how he defines gratitude. I want you to listen in, see if you agree.
When we think about gratitude in life, it can come in from so many different areas. Gratitude is not simply saying, I love my life and I'm grateful for it. It can also be a matter of how do I serve others in order to create gratitude in them for what I do, but their commitment to me creates gratitude for me.
Yeah, it's so important. He defines gratitude not for himself, but the sphere around him. And it's that energy, it's that people that can sense. And the classic example I want to think is volunteering. How many of us feel better about ourselves after we give back to serving our community? And it just goes back to the phrase, when we help others, we actually help ourselves. And this act of service nourishes our own spirit and sense of purpose. And talk about gratitude in the World Series. You got to give it to Rojas and what he did in the ninth inning to enable the Dodgers to win Game 7 World Series. Amazing. So imagine the gratitude that he felt hitting that home run and what it did to the team, what it did to the city of Los Angeles and the Dodger fans all around the world. So you got to get a sports insight in there. Next guest is Gilbert Martin. He's a tech executive from the San Francisco Bay Area. And again, this is another one of these moments that it really tugged my soul. And you'll see why. Check this out. You were living on your own at 15. How do you do that?
I was effectively a transient, living friend to friend until one of my friend's mom actually took me in. And then essentially I went to school and I had a job and I didn't really have any extracurricular activities. Emotionally, it was lonely. It was very lonely. There was a lot of different directions that you could have gone through. I was exposed to gangs. I was exposed to drugs, to women, girls. There could have been a lot of different directions. So I really do think God was watching out for me, but it was a very lonely time. I'm just going to say that.
Oh my gosh. The operative word here is God was watching me. So to the universe, the divinity, the God, thank you for taking care of Gilbert during his trying times. And again, we all face adversity and challenges, but can you imagine being kicked out of your home at 15 and learning how to survive on your own? I can't imagine that, especially not saying that today's kids don't know that, but just, again, replace being kicked out at home to the anxiety a kid feels, the depression that they have, and what they did to overcome that. We always think that, we try not to take life for granted. And boy, another thing that reminds me of is just imagine the number of homeless teens that are out there right now, and they're trying to escape their predicament and make good with their lives, or to, again, as I mentioned, to escape one bad situation to another. Citizens, I plead with you, if there's a person that you opens up to you in this manner, please help them. Gosh, never knew this soliloquy episode would be so emotional for me. It's just, again, as I mentioned before on the intro, all of these reels speak to my heart and speak to my soul. And so that's what I want to bring out. Anyway, all right, on to happier guests. Danish Doshi. He's now a freshman at Ivy League school Yale University. OMG on this individual with the wisdom beyond his years that he shares. You want to know why? Check this out.
Social media, I think, gives you a sense of a false community, especially when it's not actually grounded in the real world. For example, you can join, we talk about Instagram and Snapchat, these typical ones, but, a very big social media platform is Reddit. You can join a dozen subreddits. You can join a dozen Discord servers, which can have people that have similar interests to you, similar values to you, whatever it might be, right? And you're in these big groups of people and you're having conversations which genuinely are enriching your life, right? Because you might be having conversations about this video game or this topic or this book, and it feels like genuine connection. And I do think it's genuine social connection, but I think the issue is when it starts to replace rather than support your in-person socialization with people your own age on a day-to-day basis.
Boy, we need more young leaders like him in this world. I mean, the wisdom that he shows beyond his 19 years, he's super eloquent, as you just heard. And I think what he echoes the most is what normal adults even can't articulate. And that is, the ill wills of tech and social media. I just happen to believe that when you define success, it's really not about the wealth and power and money, but it's about human connection. And I think Danish does a masterful job at explaining to people, well, that yes, there's value in social media to help you with connections. It's still that one-to-one interaction. I'm just so grateful that he had chosen to be on the podcast. And my next episode, I call it my soliloquy episode. And for those that don't know what the word soliloquy means, it's talking to oneself. That's me, even now. But I'm just kidding. But let's hear what was my favorite reel about turning the microphone on myself. Let's listen in. He talked about having eye surgery before. What happened? Life had changed for me back in December of 2021. And this blue bag helped me with that. Before that, my vision was terrible. Really couldn't function. I had to work through a magnifying glass just because I wasn't able to read even words so clearly. So imagine the difficulty and the stress and the struggle I had with my adversity growing up throughout these times. And so from age 15 to 50 is what I have struggled with. And I sometimes still struggle with it yet still. But nonetheless, this blue bag, first, I was a number. That number was 150-979-5233. It was my number at the Mayo Clinic and during pre-ops. Boy, I raise a glass to everyone that has any sort of health struggle and issue, whether it's surviving breast cancer, whether it's having leg surgery. I mean, for me, it was the vision. But again, every human being on this earth goes through some sort of adversity. Most of them experience a health struggle and, a challenge, either mental, emotional, physical. And again, it's this power of the inner spirit that we all have to overcome and to be surrounded by, again, my anchors were my close friends and family who prayed for me, who helped me energetically heal me. And it goes back to finding your tribe, folks, right? It's like finding those friends and family, colleagues, law enforcement, teachers, school resources officer that can help guide you. Again, the success in life isn't on your own. It certainly takes a village, Hillary Clinton, to be who we are in life. And so, again, being vulnerable to sharing my experiences, and I hope you get a nugget of perspective and wisdom and just build that resiliency in you. You can do it, folks. I know you can. All right. My next guest, Nancy May, successful business leader. She herself has a very successful and entertaining podcast called Family Tree, Food and Stories. And it's interesting how she blends her business acumen with this podcast. Tell me if you agree with this particular reel.
Sometimes it's as simple as things that take our breath away. We don't realize it till after the fact, and we don't stop enough to appreciate it. And if you do, I think you might say, hey, that meeting really went well, or I didn't realize how strong mom or dad was, or my sister, or my brother, or my uncle, my aunt, what they went through. And you hear about them quite often sitting at a meal, having a beer together, or, just a bowl of ice cream. The sweetest things that bring out the best memories. I can't tell you how many deals have gone down or gone out positively with conversations over meal with a new prospective client, because I got to know who they were as a person. I got to know about their family. I got to know, as you might say, their inner soul. And we connected. That's so important today, and we miss it. So don't forget, I say every meal has a story and every story is a feast.
Isn't that incredible as we celebrate Thanksgiving this month here in November? And it really is the simplest things in life, folks, that give meaning and give purpose. And having these dinner table conversations, I think of Blue Bloods and how the Reagan family all came together with Police Commissioner Frank Reagan leading. And I think it brings out the best in people. It brings out the best in your souls and friendships to help stay connected with one another. Again, it goes back to that human connection that I had mentioned earlier. So Nancy, Sherry, thank you for sharing this reel and of your podcast, which I personally enjoy listening in. Cool. Gary Nichols, founder and famed architectural firm Revel Architecture. For those that are in the beauty area that live in San Francisco, their headquarters was redesigned by Gary and his team. Wonderful individual. And I happened to ask him, what are the elements of design and nature that reflect our inner spirit and self-awareness? And he had a very interesting take. I'll let you listen in, something that I did not expect. But again, this is my favorite episode of Gary Nichols from Architecture Firm.
Sometimes most of us don't feel like we fit in. Depression set in, and one miraculous thing happened because I had foresight to stop and try to control myself. And it was the late 70s, and people were doing self-help books. My mom had out on the coffee table was, I'm okay, you're okay. Don't know who the author is, never cracked the book open. I just saw that title, and in the middle of this very deep depression of crying every other day and listening to Karen Carpenter records in my room, I took that to heart and thought, you know what? I'm going to stop all this self-pity, which was my creation of the depression, and started having that little person on my shoulder talk to me and just say, stop feeling sorry for yourself, and just pick yourself up and just move forward. I say that because it took discipline for me to actually talk to myself and to say, I don't want this anymore. I don't want this depression. I will leave this depression room. And it worked.
We all have inner voices. And I'm just so thankful that, Gary found a way to combat his depression through the book that was on his coffee table. Imagine overcoming the self-pity. And again, it happens to all of us. Even as an adult, I sometimes worry and have anxiety. It takes courage, folks, right? If you can't do it on your own, find that help. Again, Gary's a perfect example of how he overcame this black hole, what's called depression. And imagine how life would have been different for him if he didn't have that book at his house growing up. And imagine how life would be different for so many people that did not have the guidance and friendships from their peers and from their circle to help them escape this gravitational pull called anxiety, depression, and mental health. Again, very relevant today as, again, the podcast themes is all about the inner spirit, the self-awareness that we all have to help one another and, to become the best version of ourselves. So hope you enjoyed that. My next guest, Stephanie Poe. This is a mouthful, folks. She is a business consultant. More importantly, she's a multi-generational strategic advisor consulting with families. Whew, that was a mouthful. She's based here in Phoenix, and again, 5 degrees, super smart, and lots to unpack here. You'll know why. Let's check her wisdom out.
In today's world, common sense isn't all that common, and I think that's the challenge. We are struggling with trying to figure out what is common sense and what isn't, and what should be is not, and what is not should be. I know that's a little tongue twister. And we're in a different world, in a different time where people are really more in tune with their feelings, who they are, but we still have to live in reality. And the reality is that people hurt our feelings. And the reality is things do happen that are not appropriate or or that's crossing an ethical line, or it's something that's impacting people. And if we don't stop to realize what that impact is, we're going to repeat it. Those aren't my words, right? I think Winston Churchill said something about, and I'm going to paraphrase here because I can't do him justice, but the past is bound to repeat itself. If we do not learn from it, we're doomed.
Whew. Like I mentioned before, there's so many different sub-themes to this reel, but the thing that I took away from me was two things. Number one, common sense isn't so common. I think it's framed by Thomas Paine, one of the folks that help us win the American Revolution. Again, common sense isn't so common. I think that's why, this podcast, if I could take the nice wording away, really this podcast, what it's aimed to do is knock some sense into people. They have that common sense. They just don't perhaps bring it on a regular basis. And I think that borders on the lines of what my second takeaway was in regards to ethics. I think so many people, not to fault them, but they are gravitating away from their true self. And whether you want to blame social media or technology or AI, it's all bringing that sense of who we are as individuals. Let common sense guide us with our decisions, having that important North Star that I want to say, that is our inner compass that helps guide us to be good people and to live a dharmic life. I think Stephanie hits on so many great points on this reel, so hope you enjoyed that. Next is really not a soliloquy, but I had the fortunate pleasure to be interviewed by Jen Hardy on her podcast, interestingly enough. And so this is the question that she asked and what I shared.
Your podcast is relatively new on the podcast scene, and yet you get very incredible, high-profile guests. Why do you think that is?
I'm allowed to dream. I guess it comes with my sales background. It's okay if I hear no. Perhaps for me, a no is really not a not yet. And diversity is also important in terms of the guests that I have on, in terms of their age, profession, background, culture. Because Jen, I'm sure, as you know, the listener needs to have some sort of relationship either with the host or the guest. And so what I try and do is trying to bring guests that are well-rounded, that are successful. Again, all episodes are not necessarily about bullying, but perhaps finding stories about their inner spirit or their self-awareness that the listener can identify themselves. Yep. And, I never really answered the question directly in what she asked. How do you book incredible guests? And again, a little bit of peeling the layers off the onion. Simply, it is asking politely and respectfully in terms of the nature of what I'm trying to do. And I think all of my guests have sensed the authenticity in terms of my ask. Again, I'm not here to brag or be bashful, but I do pinch myself sometimes, folks. I mean, I do get starstruck on the fact that I've had a Nick Laurie, all-time leader for the Kansas City Chiefs. I do get starstruck having Matthew Earl Jones, younger brother of Darth Vader. I do get starstruck getting Sidney Justin from The Miracles. It's like, it's incredible. And I think it just speaks to the power that all of and the theme and spirit of what all of my guests can relate to when it comes to gratitude, when it comes to overcoming adversity. And I guess another reason why I've, how to book incredible guests is, again, this kind of relates to my inner spirit, is that I'm ambitious. And I'm not bashful to say that. This is where I'm not modest. And I've never felt this ambitious ever in my 52 years on God's green earth. I mean, yes, I've had a purposeful career in sales, respectable career in sales, but this podcast and kind of the snowball effect of what I'm trying to do here to influence society in a more positive direction so that there is less divisiveness in society. There is more kindness and empathy to help your neighbor. Doesn't matter what political beliefs you have. Again, it goes back to that human spirit of human connection. And so, I want to surround myself with a community of change makers that are at the very core good people. And Then the third thing about how do I get high profile guests? As I mentioned before, I'm allowed to dream. It's like, there's so many people I want to interview. And, part of it is manifestation. Part of it is they come to me, through God's grace. I'm so thankful that they also share in the same purpose and vision that I have. So it's just been a wonderful experience, filled with gratitude, of course, to be on to be in this seat, interviewing change makers and that are helping move and drive society forward. So this wraps up part one of my best of reels from each guest. And again, please, if you wouldn't mind, if something has resonated with you, go back to these episodes, listen to the full episodes, listen to their wisdom, their spirit, their energy to carry you forward, or perhaps carry forward with a family member or your community. Like and subscribe. Share this with others that happen to believe in the same vision we all share. Again, kind of a new theme that I'm working on messaging wise is addressing the audience members or the fans of Ted Lasso, which I happen to really appreciate that series. Again, I think it speaks to the themes of what this podcast represents, which is around grit, always have a belief in people when perhaps they are down on themselves, and just that spirit of kindness and empathy that leads the world. Thanks, folks. We'll see you next week. Take care.